Hello everyone and welcome to another MechWarrior Online video. Today, well, after seeing all the weapons, we have seen all the energy weapons, how they work, how the ballistic weapons work, how the missiles work. We are going to give the last step before we start seeing videos about how building a mech, how actually to put up a mech that's going to suit your playstyle and your preferences. And that's going to be looking at the upgrades of the mechs. Now, the first thing here is that you have to understand that clan mechs don't have any option to upgrade the mech other than giving it Artemis. Ferrofibrous armor, endosteel structure, and heat sinks are only modifiable for inner sphere mechs. The clans come either with standard armor or ferrofibrous armor, standard structure, or endosteel structure. You can't change that. All of them also come with double heatsinks, but you all won't want to change that anyway. Now let's start explaining what each one of them do. And well, we are going to start with the heatsinks because they are the most self-explanatory. There are standard heat sinks. When you purchase a mech, for most of the times, you will have it right like this, with nothing equipped. Now, double heat sinks are extremely expensive. They cost 1.5 million to fit, but they are you have to get them. Is no other way for that. There's no competitive build of any mech in this game, other than maybe one or two very strange instances. There's no way in this game to have a competitive mech for a game if you don't have double heatsinks. That's because they they are so efficient. Standard heatsink dissipates, I think, 66% of what a double heatsink does. Or in other words, a double heatsink is 150% as effective as a standard heatsink. They all cost the same weight. They all weigh 1 ton. There's a little difference between both that might be an argument for going for standard heatsinks, and that's that doubles take 3 spaces and 1 ton of weight, while if you go to here, upgrades, standard heatsinks, back, load out, and you put a standard heatsink, you will see that it only takes 1 space. So it's not as space hungry, but again, it's exactly the same weight. And there's another thing here, and that's that people mostly overlook it. That is that each engine has a number of internal heatsinks. For instance, the standard 200, for instance, has 8 heatsinks. Has 6 internal heatsinks, which means that having doubles makes those 6 150% as effective as if you have singles. Long story short, go with double heatsinks. There's no other way to build a proper mech, unless you go purely ballistic in some Gauss rifle builds, but it's really strange. You really want double heatsinks. There's no way around that. It's expensive, it's 1.5 million, but you have to have it if you want your mech to be competitive in a game. Now, let's follow with Aramis and standard guidance. Now, standard guidance is, well, it's standard. Aramis, what it gives, I already spoke about it a little bit in the missiles video. It tightens the pattern of short-range missiles a lot. And SRM6 without Aramis is kind of a shotgun. Beyond 50 meters is going to be, well, super spread. However, fitted with Artemis, and it will be able to put all the rockets in the torso of a medium mech at 250 meters. Is that good? However, it has several drawbacks. Artemis, as you are going to see in the description, if this thing is so nice to tell, No, it won't come, the toolkit. Well, anyway, Aramis, what it does is to increase the size and weight of your launchers. Now, let's put it at work. Let's say that in this Stalker, I want to put in the right arm, well, one short range 6 missile, and in the left arm, LRM-10, let's say. You can see this one is 5 tons and 2 slots. This one is 2 slots, 3 tons. However, if I go back and I feed Artemis, no, modules not, sorry, it's in update. If I go, I place Artemis, I will get much more accurate short-range missiles, and I will increase the accuracy of my long-range missile with missiles inside. But that has a drawback. SRM-6s now take 3 spaces, weight 4 tons. LRM-10s take 3 spaces instead of 2 and weigh 6 tons instead of 5. So, Aramis, is it worth it or not? Well, if you have the spare tonnates and space, sure, go for it. But of course, the increased weight and size of the launchers will decrease your ability to mount other weapons. There's another secondary concept here, and is that Aramis launchers needs Aramis ammo. So if you get an SRM-6 with Aramis, you will need SRMs with Aramis, which are a lot more expensive than standard ones. But it's not that big of a deal, honestly. Once you are done with it, you are done with it. You don't have to pay for your ammo after the game. So, yeah. So, is it worth it? Well, if you are designing a mech to sit behind a hill and shoot LRMs to an enemy you can't see, Aramis is absolutely useless. Because Aramis for LRMs only work for targets you can see, that you have a line of sight. So if you are designing a mech to hide behind a hill and shoot at targets you can't see, just go with the standard and you will be golden. However, if you are designing a frontline mech that uses LRMs as support weaponry to other weapons, or, well, if you are going to be in the frontline, Artemis is really worthwhile. With SRMs, well, it kind of depends. If the SRMs are going to be your primary weapon for your mech, and you're going to rely on them to do the lion's share of your damage, using Aramis is really worth it. However, if you are using your SRMs kind of close range, last ditch defense against the enemy brawlers who come for you, then maybe Aramis is not worth it, because it takes a lot of space and tons that you would be using on your main weapons. So it's kind of, it's not really expensive, it's only a quarter of a million. So you really want to know what you want to do with your mech before deciding if you stay with the standard guidance, which most mechs come by default, or you change for Aramis. If you change for Aramis, you really want to get the full benefits of it. So again, design your mech to do the best of the system you place it. Now we come to armor and structure. Standard armor, ferrofibrous armor, standard structure, endosteel structure. Now the first and most important thing, this won't affect how much damage your mech can take. 1 unit of standard armor is as resilient and will take as much damage as 1 unit of ferrofibrous armor. Your standard structure will give you exactly the same amount of internal hit points that endosteel structure. What these things do is make the the structure will make the frame of the mech lighter. The ferrofibrous armor will make the armor of your mech lighter. In other ways, they are ways, these two are ways to get more tons to use in your mech. However, they come at a price. First of all, is that they are expensive. Ferrofibrous armor is 425,000 credits or civils. And the steel structure depends on the size of the mech, it depends on the class. For an assault is 850,000 civils, at least for the Stalker. These prices change a lot depending on the mech. Lights are, of course, a lot less costly. And they come with another trade-off, and is that they take space. Each one of these takes 14 internal spaces for them. So for instance, right now you can see I have standard armor, standard structure. Let's see that I purchase endosteel structure. The first thing you will see is that my tonnage has reduced. A standard frame of a Stalker without anything on it weighs 23 tons. I fit this and I have 4 more tons, which sounds like extremely nice. However, it comes at a cost, and we are going to see it right now. Loadout. You can see the mech is totally empty, has some armor because, well, I didn't wipe the armor, no reason to do so. What matters here is the internal space. You can see some grayed out options here, and these are mechanisms of the mech that you can't remove. You can't remove the shoulder of an arm. You can remove the upper arm actuator of an arm. In most mechs, you will have a lower arm actuator and a hand actuator as well, taking space. In some mechs you don't, depends on the particular mech. The Stalker doesn't have them. And then you have empty slot, empty slot, empty slot, empty slot, blah, blah, blah. Well, you can place here things here. However, dynamic structure slot. There are 14 of these because we have destructor, we have endosteel structure. So how does this affect? Well, if I start putting stuff, for the purposes of doing this, I'm going to put double heatsinks. You can see double heatsink, dynamic structure slot, and you will see that these slots now have migrated here. Now they are all here. What happens if I put stuff in here? I fill the spaces. Well, they have migrated here. Let's do the same in the left torso. Equipment. Blip, 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 blip. And now they are in the arms. In the left arm. Let's go to the left arm. Put equipment there. Left, 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 left. What happens now? Well, suddenly some grayed out areas are here that weren't before. Let's go full retard here and put everything with double heatsinks. And now to add up and add the space remaining there. Well, we have a right torso full of equipment, a left torso full of equipment, a left ad full of equipment, a center torso with 2 free slots that we can't use, a right arm with 6 slots that we can't use, a right leg with 2 structure slots, and a head with 1 structure slot. Overall, there are 14 slots that you can't use because you are using endosteel structure. Seen this way, it might seem like, oh, well, who cares? I mean, there are 14 slots. Usually you have a lot of free space. Yeah, that's the problem, that in many mechs you don't have that space. And the Stalker actually for the laser builds is one of them, because you want so many heatsinks that they take so much space that you can't mount any kind of endosteel structure or ferrofibrous armor. But yeah, well. So that's endosteel structure. Upgrades. Let's do this for a second because it will get rid of all the double heatsinks I put and return to standard structure. Ferrofibrous armor is the same. It takes 14 slots of your mech. So if we go full on weight saving and we use both of them at the same time, you will see that now we have dynamic armor slot as well, and that suddenly the amount of equipment we can mount is much lesser. Let's do exactly the same we did before. Let's start mounting double heatsinks. Left torso, equipment, double heatsinks. Right arm, equipment, left arm, well no, right torso, equipment, double heatsinks. And left arm, we can't even put any here. You can see all the space, it takes most of an arm, all of the center torso, most of the center torso, well, is 14 of structure slots, is 14 of armor slots. So You save weight, but it comes at a cost. Now, is it worth it? Depends a lot on the mech you are making. And again, this is also something I wanted to explain before entering mech building videos, because these two are key. Now, very important thing here, always use endosteel structure before ferrofibrous armor, because they save a lot more weight for the same space. They take 14 slots for both of them. If you go endosteel structure, you can see I will save. We can see, well, this is 33. We are saving 4 tons. If I go ferrofibrous armor, I'm saving only 1 ton and a half. So always go endosteel before ferrofibrous. In most mechs, in fact, you will be using endosteel and not using ferrofibrous, because it will take too much space. In some of them, especially some lights, because in the lights you really need all the tonnage you can for big engines and some weapons. Especially in lights, you use both. In some mediums, you will use both. But from then on, mostly and for the most part, you will be using only endosteel structure, if you use anything, because for the Stalker, for instance, I don't. If I go for a second, you will see the build I have for my Stalker. You will see that I don't use any of those upgrades, and that my loadout doesn't leave enough room for one of them. You can see that if I go back to upgrades, I can't mount neither of them, ferrofibrous or endosteel, because I don't have 14 slots open. And even if I did, then I wouldn't have a space to mount more stuff. So yeah, those are the upgrades. Remember, always go double heatsink, and then from then on you can decide if you want to mount Artemis, if you have the space to mount endosteel, and if you have the space to mount ferrofibrous. Usually the design process is very easy. You put double heatsinks, you start building the mech in the configuration you want, and once you are done with it, if there are more than 14 spaces open, then you might want one of these. Otherwise, you won't. So, well, yeah, that was a brief look at the upgrades and an explanation of what they do and how they work. In future videos, we will start working on how to build a mech. So, well, hope this helped. Thank you very much for watching, and see you later.